Hi, this is Marva Nichols, host of the HueDat Podcast on MTMV Sports Network, and I have Coach Hue Jackson for the final play on the HueDat Podcast, and I'll be right back. Hi, this is Marva Nichols, Miss GSU 1991-92, and I have my friend and former head coach of Grambling State University football with me for our final show after 2 seasons. Coach Jackson, welcome and thank you for joining me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Marva. It's always a pleasure to get on with the Queen, whether good or bad, and talk about the state of where Grambling is. But even though I won't be there anymore, I'll always be following what you're doing.
Awesome. And you know what? I appreciate that. Most people don't know that our relationship just kind of organically happened. And we decided we were going to do a show. And I believe the name of our first show was 15 Minutes with Coach Hue Jackson. And then we shifted to the HueDat Podcast and it stuck around. And we've been doing this now for 2 seasons. And so, Coach Jackson, let's get to it. You led Grambling State through a transformative period. How would you summarize your experience coaching at GSU, considering the challenges and progress made during your tenure?
You know, Marva, I'm not going to get into very specifics. I think people have to understand there's always different phases to football, right? So I took over a program that wasn't doing as well and was put in charge of rebuilding it and getting it back to sustainable winning. And I think when you make those kind of decisions, that takes time. That's not an overnight thing. That's something you got to really dive into. You got to have a plan on how to do that because there's coaches you need to hire. There are players you need to make sure you have, within the system to have those wins come to fruition. So it's not just an overnight affair. The first year was what it was. It gave all of us a chance to really recalibrate and understand what we needed. We went into year two with a much better football team. I also think with a much better coaching staff. Obviously, the wins didn't happen exactly the way we wanted them to, but at the same time, I saw a lot of improvement. And I thought we were heading in the right direction. But at the same time, the university has the right to say, hey, look, this isn't fast enough, or this is what we expected, or this is the way we want to do it. They're entitled to make their decisions as they see fit, and you have to respect that.
Absolutely. And amidst the journey, what do you feel were the key contributions you made to GSU football, and what lessons will you carry forward from this experience in your coaching career?
You know, Queen, what I think is I left it better than what I found it in all areas. Hopefully there's a pride about building something special. My biggest concern is I wouldn't want them to go back and be what they were when I got there. And trust me, there was a lot of winning before I got there. But when I got it, it was a program that was somewhat in shambles, and it needed to be rebuilt in all areas, not just on the field, but also off the field. So that takes time. That's not a overnight, thing. But I understand what Grambling is about. It's the G. It's about greatness, about championships, about winning. But you have to do the right things that it takes to put that in place in order to win. So I think it's better. I think it's in a good place for the next coach that comes in. Obviously, the team will be affected by the portal. The team will be affected by how far does it go back to what that normal last state was. And so I want to see everybody prosper and do well, and Grambling get back to where it needs to be. I'll be rooting for them from afar, but at the same time, I do understand what the expectation was.
Yeah, I certainly believe we had a better record and we were progressing, and we had some issues with some games and we lost them like by a hair or what have you.
Mhm.
And you're right, the university has a right to make the decision that they made, and it's a wonderful thing that you can express that and understand that. And we just again we I know that I personally thank you for what you've done with the program in the 2 years, knowing what you had to deal with upon your arrival. And so I do think that there was progress, but like you said, it wasn't enough in the time that they wanted it to happen, right?
Absolutely.
So let me so as the program transitions, what kind of leadership traits do you believe are crucial for the next coach to uphold to bring the program back to national prominence?
Well, I think the first thing that needs to happen is that leadership have to really explain exactly what they want and be very transparent with that collaboration with the coach and his coaching staff. Everybody that's expecting championships in year one, that normally doesn't happen unless you flip a whole roster, and that's not going to happen. And unless you get all the coaching hires right, and there's going to be people that come in and people that go out. So I think you have to work through all those things. I think what they need to do is give that person longevity, because this is building young men. People think freshmen or new players that come from other programs can come in right away and play the way the G men play. You have to learn how to become a Grambling man first before you can ever play like one. So I think there's a lot that you got to dive into before you can make those kind of decisions about what it is the expectations is. Is it your ceiling's at 5 games your first year, and then it's 8, and then it's 10, and then it's championships after that. Whatever that is, I just think it needs to be articulated that way to the particular leaders so they know what they need to do, because that might mean cutting a lot of the team. That might mean they're going to pay more money for assistant coaches, whatever that is. But you got to make sure that you're all on the same page in order to get the result that you want.
Yeah. So such great advice, because you were sitting in that seat just a few days ago. And so it's really fresh. And I'm sure if you knew certain things, it maybe, you could have been more, expedient about things, or you did the best you could within the time you had.
And look, we're trying to win every game. Let's just be
Right.
very transparent. There's no coach that's never not trying to win every game, but maybe the players are not ready for that. We just brought in a brand new quarterback who rose to the second best quarterback in the conference. That's unheard of. We watch an offense go from where it was a year ago to being the second best in the conference. That's what you expect. That's my background. So it was starting to turn the way it needed to turn. But like I said earlier, it just wasn't fast enough for the brass, for the executive people and what they wanted and what they saw. And I'm going to say it again, they have a right to feel that way. But what you don't want it to do is go backwards and then try to reboot it again, because now you're back in that same cycle again. So that's the concern that I have for the young men, for the coaches that will stay, and for the new coach that's coming in.
Yeah, Graham fam is a tough crowd. If I must say so myself. And
they're good. They're not that tough.
well,
Marva,
we're a great
about our
community.
fans. I have great respect for our fans. Listen, they're passionate. They want to win, and they have every right to want to win. I just hope people educate them on what it takes to win. You got to win off and on the field before you ever come to the game. And it's more than just rolling the ball out there and playing. There's so many other things that go into this that I don't think people really think through before they start booing and yelling and, boy, get rid of the coach and get rid of this and get rid of that. There's so much that goes into this. And I just wish people would understand. Everybody wants the end result to be a championship. There's no coach that doesn't want that. There's no player that don't want that. You have to make sure all those pieces fit right. And when they do, magic will happen, but you got to build something, right? I didn't get a team. The team I inherited was not a championship team that I walked into. This was a rebuilding mode. So you have to rebuild it in your vision, not in the fans' vision, not in what people thought the vision was. It was in my vision and what I thought it was going to take for sustainable winning. And you saw a jump. And look, I would have loved to win 9 games this past year. We wouldn't even be having this conversation. And I thought we could have. And there's some games that we didn't. So you have to make adjustments after that, just like everybody else does, in order to put yourself in a better position. But that's the way this thing works. It's not turnkey. If somebody handed somebody a turnkey program, I would have those same expectations. But if you don't, then please have patience. Let these people do what they feel they need to do. Yeah, there's a start point and an end point, but you got to know where that end point is, and that's why you sign people to contracts. That's why you give people years on their contracts. You go, hey, look, this is what we expect. And then if they're moving in that direction, man, hold the fort down. Get out ahead of what people think is what should be happening and tell them what is happening. That's why I really enjoyed this podcast, because we shared a lot of conversations. They weren't all pleasant. I didn't run from the truth. I didn't run from the things that needed to be fixed, whether it was we needed to play better on defense, or whether we need to play better on offense, whatever all that is, that's part of it. Sometimes that's painful for people. But when someone's being very transparent and telling you what it is, and you can see it, and you know that that's what they're working at, you got to have patience with that person, or else you'll never have somebody get to where you really want them to be, because it's never going to be exactly the way you want it.
Yeah. I'm glad for this show too, because I've gotten several calls from fans saying, well, what are we going to do about a show? They were like, we really love the show. I said, well, I'm not sure. However, we'll see in time. But this show, like I said, happened organically. People enjoyed it. And I wanted to create this show for the purpose of connecting you to our fan base, so they could see you beyond the weekly swag media podcast, or, even your personal or Grambling's press conference every week, because it's kind of like statistics and blah, blah, blah. But on this show, I want to thank you for agreeing to do this show and opening yourself up to speak to the audience, and even sit with me and talk. And so that even shows how great of a person and coach that you are, and that you wanted to, really be a part of our Gram fam and a part of rebuilding the tradition. And so I can remember talking about that, going back to your arrival, Coach. You brought an unprecedented level of excitement, to Grambling in 2022 for the spring game. Can you share more about the strategies and initiatives you have implemented to create such a buzz and enthusiasm around the program? I think we were all excited after, we had gone through what we had gone through with the previous coach and what had happened with him. So give us some insight on that.
There's so many things, Marva. I mean, I take this show. There wasn't a show like this. So I thank you for that. It's a deeper dive with the coaching staff into who they are, the players to who they were. And so I think the fans enjoy connecting that way. We know that this is a social media age. When we got here, there wasn't very many followers on the football page. I mean, it's up over 20,000 or 30,000, whatever it is now. When I got here, my social media wasn't very strong. I have over 1 million followers. And to me, that says something, so we were doing a lot of things right, and I think that's what people don't understand. There's so many avenues to judge these things on, other than just wins and losses. There is a time for that. Don't get me wrong, but we're building a program, and that means building off the field as well as on the field. When I look at all the other social media spaces and relationships with Urban Edge Network, with Next Level, with Bruce Dearbon, who just done so much for our football team in the space of the support stadium building. When I think back to G-Man Nation being really involved, and feeling like they were a part of it again, that mean more to me than anything. AE Touch Technologies, all that stuff to me is building a program, because you have to have support and those people in place. That it's not just the fans, they do a big piece too, but those people who are spending dollars, spending their time, really jumping on this every day, you got to have those people in place. And so that's what I think I did in the beginning, was try to build the right relationships and build the right friendships, so I could go back when I needed things very often to say, we need more help. We need to get over this hump that we need to get over. We need more help. And so we were able to do that. And we were able to do that at a high level. What everybody wanted is what we all want, which is winning. So you got to have the social media presence. You got to have that support. And then you got to make sure you put the right players on the team. I'm most proud that there's 2 young players. And this is what I'm very excited about, where they go. When I think of Keyshawn Johnson, who was a freshman All-American this year, that comes from St. Quine's High School in Florida. Then I look at Javen Robinson on offense, who's the newcomer of the year. They're freshman players. Every freshman shouldn't be playing on a G-Man football team. We had 2 that made some real contributions, and we had about 3 to 4 that really played. That tells you something. So that means we're really changing it, because if you go back and look the year before, we had more than that playing. We had quite a few playing, and quite a few of those guys wasn't playing again this year, because that means the talent is starting to change. And that's what needed to happen. And so I just, people don't take a deep dive into all those things. People get very emotional, and what they see is the wins and the losses, and not what's really coming and what's really being built. And I get it. I'll keep saying that, because I do. I've been there before. I know what that is. But if people can't articulate it, and if people can't see it, and if people can't walk through it, and if they don't know it, then all they know is what they hear. Oh, well, it's a win and it's a loss. It's a win, it's a loss. Well, don't go backwards. That's the biggest thing nobody wants to do, is ever go backwards. But again, everybody's got to understand what they're trying to accomplish.
Wow, that was very in-depth, and thank you. And that's why we love the podcast, right?
Mhm.
Because you and I can always have those heart-to-heart conversations. And you were talking about social media. Now, building a social media recruiting pathway was a unique approach, Coach. How did this strategy impact the recruitment process, and what aspects of it do you believe were the most effective in reaching potential recruits?
It gave the recruits an opportunity to see Grambling in a different light than what they had been seeing, because they didn't see the social media presence. It got to look behind the scenes in recruiting and show the things that we were doing. Whether it was the spinning deal that we did with coaches and players when they put on their uniforms, or whether it was a night out in the stadium with all the nice cars and like whatever all that was, it was something that needed to happen, because it wasn't happening, but yet it's happening all across the country. And so you have to be able to compete that way for the student athletes, because that's what they look for. They want to be able to go on, because that's where their phones are everything to them. That's where they spend all their time. And so they're able to see what's happening at your school, and we're putting out a whole bunch of information all the time. And I think that is just tremendous, for the school. That needs to stay. That presence has got to be there, and it's got to even pick up more, because I think if they really want to make that jump and be in that space, you got to put support around that. And we as coaches, we're doing that. Me and my own personal staff, we're doing that. It wasn't, and they do a great job within the athletic department, but as you see, the winners of that, you have to have an overflow of information that comes out of your school. You just can't have enough people who are always putting information out about what you're doing at your school.
Wow, it was phenomenal. I know I've never seen that much social media presence from our football program, and it was phenomenal because it made us feel like we were there with you. Although we're in Chicago, New York, Atlanta, Alabama, wherever we our living, we had a chance to peek into the day-to-day of our Grambling football team. So hats off to you and your staff, and even Grambling State University's staff. They have some phenomenal graduate students and students that do that work. I had the opportunity to meet them, and so that was phenomenal. And so not only did you push for the social media presence, you also invested in training in your coaching staff to enhance their knowledge and to prepare them for future opportunities of head coaching, which one now is now the interim. So could you enlighten us on your what was your mindset behind training your coaching staff?
Part of my existence on the back end of my career is to be able to give back to the minority men who have a chance to move forward. I've been a two-time NFL head coach, one of the most historic HBCU college head coaches in the country. I think I would be doing a disservice if I didn't help train our coaches to be the best they could be. And so I wanted to do everything I could to create the environment for our coaches to have a chance to know what it felt like to be in an interview setting, to be interviewed, understand questions that may come, things they needed to prepare for, things they need to make sure they were on top of. You know, I even think of Dr. Dina Brown and how she was so, really important in the mental health space, and all the guest speakers that came in to speak to our team when we had cleanup day. And I know they were doing a lot of this stuff before. And it always leads me to something that I feel that people, the Graham fam, and I love Graham fam, they're amazing, but I hope we just don't stay stuck in the olden days, right? We're so used to what the olden days, and we talk about that a lot, about what it was when Coach Rob was here. And Coach Rob would be disappointed, everybody says, but this is a different era. This is a different time. And I think people got to understand, you can't judge, the same book at this time by that cover. You can't do that. You got to let this time now run. And there's been a lot of championships since Coach Robinson was here. But at the same time, the heyday of winning championship after championship after championship after championship is what everybody's trying to get to here. How do you get that back? There's so many things that go into that. And it doesn't happen just overnight. It takes time. And you got to make sure you have the right things in place. I'll just keep saying that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a different landscape now with college football, period, or college sports. And I've had those debates with Graham fam, and I tell them, I love Coach Rob, and I travel with him as Miss Grambling. A lot of those guys that played during that era, they're my brothers today, and they were phenomenal athletes. But at that time, we didn't have social media. We had the facilities back then, right? We were the powerhouse for real. Everyone wanted to come to Grambling. Everyone wanted to sit at the feet of Coach Eddie Robinson. And now you have schools in the SWAC that have multi-million-dollar facilities like Prairie View and Alabama State and others that are getting their facilities.
Marva, that tells you something. We always say that we're first. Is that still true?
Right.
We're not. That's the thing that'd be my challenge to everybody. What are we first at now? We're trying to catch up. And I shouldn't say they're trying to catch up now. And so they've had others that have come in and passed them. So I was trying to accelerate things as fast as I could off the field, around the program. Understanding we got to accelerate it football wise, but the thing that's different now is called a portal. It's called NIL. It's called, kids are still impressed with the impressive. So some of the schools you're talking about now in the SWAC, they have these nice facilities. They have these lights that are going off everywhere. Where were Gramblings at that time? So you're trying to make these things work while still trying to bring in these athletes. And so if you looked at the team and people say, well, they're 4 or 5 players away. Well, why are we 4 or 5 players away and the other team's not? Well, it's because we don't have some things that we needed at that particular time. And maybe a player decided to go to X or Z because they had what they needed from a recovery standpoint and you don't. And so people don't get that. It's so much that goes into this that you have to work through. And my challenge was always, and I've always, as you know, I'm an open book. People could have came there and seen for themselves. Go see what's there, because people still related to, we have all the best players. We have all the best facilities. We have all the best nutrition. Okay, well, come see and compare that. And then you can have that conversation. Give someone everything, you should expect a lot. But if you're not giving them everything, don't expect everything just to happen just like that.
Gotcha. And I even think about those kids in Texas that we would love to bring to Grambling. Their high school facilities, are really, really advanced. And so those were conversations I've had amongst Gram fam, because, like I said, we have had a lot of conversations. I may have not have done them online, but I have had those conversations with some of the former players and things like that. Of course, because I have the podcast, everybody want to come talk to me about, what's going on. And so, but great insight, Coach. And I see it. And like you said, with the NIL, all of that's playing a big part in even the new teams that have come into the SWAC, one specifically. And so they're doing a phenomenal job in just about every area and recruiting within their state. But I can say that I love the way that you recruited down I-20 and I-10 and whatever other areas that you did go into. And I think that's where you found some really, really good players. And I know you went over to California, your home state, and got Floyd Chalk. And so we saw the evidence of your recruiting. And I just wanted to make light of that on this podcast, as we are doing the final play. Now, I want to say, ask you, reflecting on this experience, what lessons have you personally taken away from this situation, and what advice would you offer, like I said, to future coaches and for a swifter field success? Because that's what Grambling wants.
Right.
We want next year championship.
Yeah, I think for swifter field success, the coach better make sure that the university is ready for that. What do you mean when you say that? That takes money. That takes money. If that's what the expectation is, then there's a lot of things you got to bring up to speed. You got to bring nutrition up to speed. You got to bring recovery up to speed. You got to bring the practice field up to speed. You got to bring the weight room up to speed, the locker room up to speed. That's a lot. You got to bring mental health services up to speed. There's a lot of things that go into that bag. So Hue, are you saying they're not up to speed? I'm telling you, they're not where they should be. However people want to take that, they're not where they should be. So if the head coach is going to have to play in all those areas I just mentioned, then he doesn't get the chance to do the things he really needs to do, because you're robbing Peter to pay Paul in so many different areas. And so you have to have those things in place in order for you to compete all the way around. And just go back to the point you made about recruiting. Our punter, he's from Australia. He's all conference. The defensive end, Sonny Anderson, was first team. He's from Atlanta. The young freshman defensive lineman I mentioned, he's from Florida. The other freshman, he's from Florida. Floyd Chalk's from California. So what do you mean by that, Coach? They come from all over the place. Then we have to make the I-20, like you say, home. Well, the kids are seeing what's here and they're wanting something different. You can't keep giving those kids the same thing. They want something that is impressive, because when they go on the other trip, it is different and impressive. So you have to be able to play into that at a whole different level. And I think that's very, very important. And so those are the things I would say to the coach. Hey, look, don't go in with it's Grambling. And so everybody walks in and says Grambling. So you expect that a lot of these things are there and that they're ready to go. And this is what we're doing. Hold up, wait a minute. Make sure of those things, because if not, then you spend your time working on those things and not what the work really is, like you said, which is finding the players, making sure the players will stay, making sure the players are, that you have the resources for them to put them out there so they can go be the best football players they can be.
Well, I hope that, alums, donors, brands, corporations, administration, listens to this and we all take action to be a part of the solution.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a part of Grambling, will always be. I love my school immensely. I will always support Grambling, whoever the leader is. That's just the way it is. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to always try to, be transparent and truthful as well. And so we have to own what we need to do. And I certainly hope that we are ready to move forward and making these things happen. And it takes time too to do that, right?
Yes, it
It
does.
takes time. That takes time as well. So let's get to the players. Coach Jackson, during your tenure, Lewis Matthews, Sundiana Anderson, Miles Crawley, Floyd Chalk, Chance Williams, Cedric Anderson, and others showcase immense potential. How do you envision their growth and contributions beyond your coaching era at GSU?
A lot of these guys are going to be successful men, and whatever they decide to do. Some of these guys will have chances to matriculate into the National Football League. Some will be extremely successful in their field of study. And there's going to be many more behind them. One thing I will say, that the cupboard isn't bare. There's some players there, and you just mentioned a quarterback. You mentioned running backs who are very talented. They show that every game. You mentioned some defensive players. So, there's a chance for the men that are leaving. Lyndon Rash, these guys got tremendous potential, and they're going to come back and they're going to go out into this world and represent the G to work the right way. Because I've always said I want guys to come to Grambling, earn a degree, and do something worthwhile with their lives while playing great football. And so those guys played some great football, and now it's time for them to do, those guys who are seniors, time for them to do something worthwhile with their lives.
Yes. And if you could offer direct guidance or words of wisdom to these guys as they transition into the next phase of their lives or their football journeys, what would it be?
You got to remain gritty. You got to go get what you want. Life is what you make it. I've never believed in somebody telling me something I couldn't do. They can do it if that's what they want, but it takes a plan and a process and work. And that's no different than what we're talking about now for the great university that that you're talking about today. You got to have a process and a plan, and then you got to go do the work. And sometimes the work is hard, and the work doesn't just show overnight. You got to keep sawing and keep sawing and keep sawing, and eventually it comes, but it's gonna come. And that's the thing that these young men have to understand. When you get it fast and easy, it's probably not very good. It probably won't last very long, and I believe that in life. When it's something that happens very easy, very fast, it's probably not sustainable. You probably got it because a lot of other things around you just wasn't happening the right way, right? But when you work at it and you know how to fix it, you know what the problems are, you know what you need to do in order to get there, you're going to get there. And when you get there, it's so sweet because it's going to continue to be that way. And that's what I hope for these young men.
Hey, Coach Jackson, I wanted to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude for your unwavering dedication and wholehearted commitment to the Grambling State football program and the HueDat Podcast. Your dedication and tireless efforts and passion for the game were evident from day one. You didn't just receive a salary, you brought hard work, you brought people together, you brought forth resources from the network and world you came from. Your influence extended far beyond the field. You became a mentor and a role model, showing our players how to navigate adversity and how to respond to challenges with grace, determination, and fortitude. As a Grambling community, we've been divided in our opinions about our beloved football program for the past 5 years. And we all know that the role of Grambling State's head coach is esteemed, but yet undeniably one of the toughest in football due to the weight of the tradition and legacy that defines HBCU football. Throughout your tenure, amidst the victories and the losses, you've shown us the true essence of a winner by putting forth your best effort to restore the winning legacy at Grambling State. In the grand scheme of things, we understand that our times are in the hands of God. Your chapter at Grambling State has drawn to a close, but I firmly believe that the best is yet to come for you and equally so for our GSU football program. Thank you, Coach Jackson, for your unwavering commitment, your love for football, and most importantly, for the way you guided and inspired the young men under your leadership at Grambling State University. Your impact transcends wins and losses, and if nothing else, you have left an indelible mark on the hearts of the G-men you coached and your supporters. And with that being said, the Queen bids you a hearty farewell and God's immeasurable blessings on your life. It's all good, it's all God, and it's all Grambling. Thank you for joining us for the final play for the HueDat Podcast.